This was Kendrick Lamar's make or break moment. Either he would become a success or fall short like all the mixtape rappers of his era. After coming off Section 80, he was being called the next one up. Even the legends began taking notice of him.
He's dope. That's what you wanted to know? What I thought about Kendrick? He's one of the next, to me, in America, period. He's one of the next.
His momentum was building while in talks to sign with Dr. Dre, a man he looked up to for decades. He had the entire world watching him, eagerly awaiting his next move. And in this moment, Kendrick Lamar decided to drop a song, but not just any song. A song that, to this day, is considered one of the best he's ever released. But here's where it gets interesting. Most people have never actually heard it. This isn't officially on Spotify, Apple Music, or any album or mixtape. The song I'm talking about is Cartoons and Cereal.
And I run it. And I run it. That's ironic. This shit make a nigga just.
Even though this song was released 9 months before Good Kid, Mad City, which is considered one of the best albums of all time, it's Cartoons and Cereal that's often considered better than any of the songs on this album by those who have heard it. So what makes this song so remarkable? And if it's so good, why was this left off the album? Well, let's talk about that in today's video. Now, to understand just how important this song is, first we need to rewind and think about where Kendrick Lamar was at this time. After dropping Section 80, he was being praised for his sound and musical direction. That 90s jazz palette he used helped him stand out amongst his peers and gain all this attention.
Yo, your mixtape is crazy though.
Appreciate it, man.
I was just telling your manager we was banging that shit in Japan.
Pleasure, bro.
And I love all that jazz shit that y'all have in your music. That's the shit, man.
So let me ask you what you would do here. You have legends like Pharrell telling you to never lose your sound. Bloggers that are praising you for this exact same sound as well. The smart move here would be to keep doing the exact same thing, right? Well, this is what made Cartoons and Cereal so remarkable. It's what cemented Kendrick Lamar as a true artist rather than just another rapper. And let me show you why by breaking this song down. Here we start off with this sinister, detuned synth playing underneath sound effects of Kendrick watching TV as a child.
I want to get line drop.
Then after this intro slowly pulls you in, the full beat finally comes in, and this is where the producers of this beat do something that nobody was expecting. Gone were the jazzy, neo-soul sounds and ideas. On this beat, the producers decided to create this dark, aggressive, and nihilistic sounding beat. This was co-produced by Jay Pounds, who was on a ton of Kendrick Lamar's last album, but also by THC, who in my opinion had some of the most inventive, insane beats of the 2010s. They were responsible for this beat.
Damn, yeah, with shoes, with the shit, hey.
And this beat.
I'm gonna get you high. Honest down the low and crazy, I'm gonna get you high.
And probably Kendrick's most experimental beat up to this point.
Fuck that other nigga when she tired of her nigga. Fuck that other nigga when she tired of her nigga.
And it was these producers that helped Kendrick redefine himself on Cartoons and Cereal. His choice to subvert expectations and choose production like this was something that no one saw coming. So let's break down the components of this beat and see what makes it so different. For one, we have this trap drum pattern. Looking at the hi-hats instead of a straightforward pattern like this. We see stutters placed underneath the snares, helping emphasize them and creating more energy. From here we have a straightforward and steady 808 pattern, which helps introduce an aggressive feel into the beat. But the real star of this beat is this eerie, somber sounding sample. And this sample is really important to the story, you'll see why soon. But first, here's the actual sample that was used.
I never knew loneliness could be so awful.
What makes this sample usage so interesting is that most of the song feels like this sappy, straightforward love song as you just heard, but this one section in the song feels much more melancholic and unique. And this piece is exactly what the producers used for this beat. From here, the sample is pitched way down an entire octave and slowed down too. And doing this makes that string sound like a ghostly wailing noise. From here, some pretty smart chopping techniques are used. For one, take a look at the BPM of the beat and compare to the BPM of the sample. As you can see, the sample is slightly slower. Now, why do this? Well, here's how the sample would sound if the same BPM was used as the beat after we chop the sample up. You can hear we have that ugly sounding snare in the sample right around here. And it ends up really sticking out, even after we introduce the drums from the beat. That snare just sounds bad and out of place. So here's how this problem was fixed. By placing far more chops, including one right at that ugly snare, and then just nudging that chop a tiny bit after the snare and slowing down the BPM of the sample just a tiny bit less. The producers effectively remove this snare from the sample and create a far more consistent sounding loop that doesn't have this random sound just jump in out of nowhere. Just a very smart producing technique here. Another great decision has to do with these last two chops here. So far, all the chops are played sequentially, meaning the chops play in the order that they appear in the actual sample. But those last two chops just don't sound great. That horn ends up overpowering the central string, and it just sounds abrupt, like it comes out of nowhere as well. So once again, here's how the producers fixed this problem. In the original sample, this musical phrase that you just heard ends up occurring twice. So the producers decide to take the identical piece from the other time this phrase occurs in the sample, which has a slightly different composition though. You can see in this version those chops jumped back for the final two pieces, the reason being that wailing string is now sounding much more consistent in this version, helping the beat just sound more cohesive overall. From here, some EQing is done to emphasize that string and de-emphasize the horn, and this is how the beat to Cartoons and Serial was made. So why was this track left off of Good Kid, Mad City if it's so good? Well, as per Kendrick himself, it was because of that beautiful sample that we just broke down. The original artist didn't want to clear the sample for Kendrick, and this is especially frustrating because that same artist had cleared the use of other songs to other rappers in the past. And as per Punch, trying to recreate the beat without the sample and replaying it would have just taken the magic away, which is often the case when you try to recreate samples from scratch. But this wasn't the last time Cartoons and Serial has shown up somewhere. In the video to Kendrick's song Alright, it actually makes a brief audio cameo. And yeah, that is the story of Kendrick Lamar's best song that you might not have ever heard. Let me know in the comments if you're one of the few who has heard this song before, but if you haven't, what do you think of this song? Like and subscribe, and if you're a fan of Kendrick's, I do have another video next to me where I break down why the album before this, Section 80, was such a success. But if you're not interested, hopefully I see you next week. Bye bye.